welcome to another Frame Rate Talk.
Oh, hello.
This is the podcast where we rate the frames.
Rate frames.
I like your bit so far. I am one of your hosts, Abe Epperson, and I'm here with my co-host,
Michael Swaim.
Hey, how you doing, man?
What bit? How would you define that bit? Interrupting and talking over you? Is that the bit?
No, it was more of just like hype man. That was like a generic hype man bit. It was a weird hype man, but I liked it.
I am so depressed that I want to mention it because in case I think it will probably be apparent to people who've listened to a lot of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I am, man.
I'm sorry.
It's rough
to hear
out
that.
there, but who isn't? Who isn't?
Yeah, sometimes it just comes in waves,
Crazy
and that's
times.
okay. And I'm here for you. I'm sorry you have to
Thanks,
podcast, but you have to podcast.
No, it's probably good for my mental state to podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a little bit more than other people would, and I don't know if I can't speak for you, but I don't think we should all be worried for Michael. I think he's just having a heck of a week at work.
2 weeks. Yeah. We're just doing a series of very, very intensive shoots. And for that, I'm in LA staying at an Airbnb with no air conditioning.
Oh, yeah.
And there's just sort of nothing to do but long shoot days and then sit in this hot
really
box.
Long.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like we've tried to do this podcast like 3 different days in a row. I want to say maybe not, but like it feels like it's been belabored, and it's by no fault of anyone's other than you'll just be like, "Hey,
on the weekend." Yeah,
I
we're
can't
working
do it
through
today because I'm gonna sleep or I have to go to work again." And I'm like, "All right, man."
Yep. But this isn't work.
It's
this is play. Yeah.
I'd hope so. I enjoy doing this. This episode, as you can read, is about Whitesnake.
Whitesnake Moan. About a young southern white woman who chains an elderly black man to a radiator to, quote, teach him to act right. Highly offensive movie.
Highly offensive movie.
Really just out of bounds.
No one saw it except a few people, and you know who you are.
Yeah, no. That's right. Whitesnake, 2019, right? Right, Snake?
2019 Chinese animation, kind of like family, although we're going to talk about that, I'm sure. Disney-esque Chinese, like Pixar level. If you haven't heard about this, like Hong Kong and Chinese animation is getting pretty damn good to the point that they're pumping out movies at an increasing rate that are equally polished and impressive as our own.
I would
American
peg this as like
animation.
It looks like a 2013 Pixar movie.
Yeah.
And it came out in 2019. So like that's the lag roughly there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But they're like getting really good because it's also a visually striking movie. I wanted to shout out.
Please. Who brought us the snake?
Who brought us this one? Because this is yet another, as it feels like they all are, because we're still a little behind on our Pick the Flick tier, which actually I wanted to address. It has gone away on our Patreon for temporarily because we have gotten so behind and our eyes were bigger than our stomach, and we wanted to bring you all the hits and get more people included. But it's just if you still have an outdated Pick the Flick, we're getting to it, and we stopped the tier until we're back.
Till we catch up.
Till we've caught up, and then at which case we'll start it again.
Can I do like a cranky rant about that? Yeah, just a peek behind the business curtain. The Pick the Flick tier's been super helpful to like the business side of Small Beans and keeping the lights on, but I'm a little worried about this movie because it's a spoiler alert. It's good. It's quite good. And I don't know. So yeah, there's a tricky balance between filling every slot with Pick the Flick, but then we've started to lose listeners because y'all are trying to impress us with your goddamn deep cuts of really good movies. But I'm like, come on, there's still like The Godfather. Someone pick Schindler's List. You know what I mean? You gotta think like a marketer, man. You got you need a clickable headline. No one knows
they don't
White
have
Snake.
to do shit, dude. They pay us money. We do the thing. That's how it works, baby.
But we're certainly not gonna skip anyone. So we're doing all the pick the flicks, but we're shutting it off for a minute because we want to sort of right the ship only insofar as we want to pick some heavy hitters so that the bulk of listeners are also, so we're making sure they're getting like big name movies that they've seen and care about in their feeds.
Yeah, so we might do that for a bit, but at the same instance, we're very thankful for everyone. We're not going to skip it, obviously, and with that kind of in mind, I want to thank Mindfreak555. That's just how I think to say his name. And yeah, thank you for being our Pick the Flicker.
Yeah, thanks, Mind Freaks.
Yeah,
which
you
is
probably
how I
all
say
remember him from Fantastic Planet when we did that episode. He also did the Pick Flick for that. And yeah, he's got some taste, got some animated taste.
Oh, and another caveat, if you're a Chinese person living in China, this isn't a deep cut at all. You'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? This is like covering Toy Story or some shit.
Yeah, it's probably
because there was a lot of money behind it, and it was a big deal in China. Definitely a big movie. Pixar is the right comparison, although as we'll dive into, there are definite differences.
Oh Lord.
Oh yeah,
that's true. So what do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? Do you want to just talk about the plot a little bit, I guess?
Well, in cases where I anticipate most people are unaware of the movie, I do like to encapsulate the plot real quick. And my understanding from reading a little bit more about it on Wikipedia and a couple other articles surrounding it is that this is an interpretation just like, you know, how Disney takes public domain stories. So like this is a famous Chinese folklore, or at least it's a riff on a Chinese folklore that's been retold a million times, like your Pinocchios or your what have yous.
Absolutely.
And it's called White Snake, and it's about this lady. I watched the dubbed version, which probably is bad.
That's what was available on Amazon.
I'm too sad to read right now. So
well, that was what was kind of available to us. I couldn't find any other version.
Well, in the dubbed version, and I'm sure this is corrupted translation because there's no way the pun works this way, but I understand their intention. There's two sisters, Blanca and Verta. So like Verta is green. Verta's a green snake and Blanca's a white snake, but those are Latin at roots. You know what I mean? That's a pun on green and verde or vert. Yeah, anyway, I'm sure there's Chinese names that also sound like colors that they probably pulled the same pun trick. But Verta and, I got real granular on this one because I figured people would want a synopsis, so I'll blast through it real quick. Verta and Blanca, we open on these two sisters and they're in a bath, and Blanca, or, you know, like a steam... hot spring. Ghost of Tsushima, I want to say. Yeah. And Blanca's meditating and almost achieves enlightenment / immortality. I wonder about the translation there as well, but in the dub they continually call it immortality. And she gets thrown back by some kind of dark wall that we find out by the end represents like trauma, you know, that she has to overcome before she can reach nirvana or what have you. And then her sister goes, here's your jade hairpin. And she goes, why are you giving me this now? And she goes like, it's yours after all. It's time for you to have it and remember everything. Bum, 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 bum. Flashback. Blanca is a skilled magical wuxia style assassin about to assassinate an evil dark general who uses dark kung fu, they call it, or Taoist magic, to basically, from his point of view, try and rid the land of demons. But it's not that clear, right? Some of the demons have human intelligence and they feel like they're being extinguished. Some people are evil, and the general's one of them. Although I gotta say, that was something that occurred to me, is like, what is the general doing day to day, though? Is he slaughtering the brutal animal style demons? Because that is a valuable service. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen Journey to the West,
Conquering Demons.
Yeah, Conquering Demons by Stephen Chow.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of inhabits that world.
And that's a well-trod, like in Chinese culture,
Yeah.
that's a well-trod version of magical realism is
Exactly.
like we have Lord of the Rings. It's just as standard there to have this sort of heightened demon world is a very common trope. And it's really cool. I like it. So I love stuff in this kind of world. So then we cut to a Disney-style bustling township where we meet Xuan, who is a snake catcher from Snake Catcher Village who's scared of snakes. And he has a cute, clumsy dog friend who clearly will learn to talk later, and indeed does.
I see Pixar rearing its head.
Dudo. Yeah. So you can interrupt, by the way, if you want to take some beats, because I realize I'm breaking it down. She tries to assassinate the general, but something backfires. There's a flash of magic. You're not entirely clear what happened. But Xuan finds Blanca's body in a pool downriver, and she has amnesia. At the same time, the general is searching for her, so he sends a guy called Little General, I think.
Yeah, it's like the right-hand man. He's also a sorcerer.
Also very magical, yeah.
Yeah, and he's very effective, but he's not the big bad.
Mm-hmm. Then we get introduced to the whole snake culture and the snake demons, which are like snake people that based on I'll get into that later. So they're hybrid snake people, and they're all run by a snake master, who's this lady who can control a giant ephemeral golden snake. And they hate the general because he's going to wipe them all out. And also because this is why Snake Catcher Village exists. He's gathering snakes because I guess snakes are potent in magical energy. And he's just slaughtering them and sucking their souls out and taking their life force. And that's why he's so magical. That's where all his power comes from.
Well, if you notice the energy that exudes from like his soul sucking powers, like what he takes from snakes are that yellow energy, which is also like everyone else looks kind of like a Lamia, like snake body, human
torso. Yeah.
But the snake master, she is in charge of everybody. She kind of operates a giant snake, and it seems ethereal.
Yeah.
And I think I think the idea is that she has she's like kind of not necessarily the source, but she has all the snake power. That's why she's the snake master. Everyone else has it imbued inside them, but they aren't like somehow connected to the faucet of the energy of snakes.
Right.
So in any case, yeah, you can keep going.
In any case, Verta, the sister, says, a snake guy named Chang Pan, who's a very scary snake man, says, baddest snake man in the whole damn town. He says, Blanca's clearly betrayed us. I will have her head, and I will eat it as a snake might. And her sister Verta goes, no, let me bring her back. There's no way she betrayed us. I'll sort this all out. And they pull an escape from LA, or escape from Snake City, if you will, and they implant her with exploding, what are they called? Oh, they have a good name.
Dragon scales?
Yeah, but they're called like deadly scorching scales of explosion or something. But anyway,
it sounds very D&D.
There's scales embedded in her body that will explode in 3 days, killing her if she doesn't fulfill her quest, no matter what. Or no matter what, I don't know. Will she? But anyway, then we cut back to Xuan and Blanca on a cute little boat ride.
It's like a meet cute. Yeah.
It's a meet cute. We can unpack it more in detail, but they sing a cute song, and the dog learns to talk because of magic. And then Chang Pan shows up and becomes a giant snake and is like, I don't care what they said back there at Snake City. I'm going to kill you. Yeah. And Blanca turns into a giant snake and slices him in multiple pieces at once with her tail.
So quick. And there's also, I can take the next beat if you want. There's also, they find out by scaling like a mountaintop that her hairpin, which she used to try to assassinate, in her attempt to assassinate the general, aka when she lost her memory, the jade pin reminds Shuin that he has seen there's this place called Precious Jade, like factory workshop. And so if we go there, maybe they'll know what's going on. So that's their next deal, as they, start heading along to try to connect with, maybe that's the source of her amnesia, and also finding out who she is.
And something's fucked up with her because she keeps freezing and having comas where she freezes.
Yeah, that's right. After the
and he keeps her warm.
Yeah, he keeps her warm. So they kind of mimic that at the end. It's basically, we've seen it time and time again. There's a lot of like the romance arc of this has been seen in a lot of Chinese films. Like, or at least I've seen them in a lot. Like even Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon or something, like there's a lot of like these lovers that are like, we can't really, it's kind of the ill-fated lovers.
You're a demon, I'm a human. There's also a lot of...
Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on.
They seem more open to permutations of the Beauty and the Beast parable, where the beast stays a beast. Like, there's a lot more Chinese films than American films where someone is in love with a giant monster, and they just are, and they don't care what you think. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's definitely a thing. So they go to the Precious Jade workshop. Speaking of humans fucking animals, I think that's how they produce this lady who they meet. A demon girl who the back of her head is a wolf head, which is really cool because the ears look like horns when she's human
really
facing.
Cool. It's horrifying. I don't understand how this is like, they put like 7+ for this. It is
as age range?
Horror. Yeah, it's horrifying.
Oh, I would not. Yeah, I consider this way too creepy and erotic.
Her neck.
Well,
yeah, and erotic. There's
but actually, that's our hang up, because I actually think that's our problem. Sex isn't. It's not like violent sex. She's just
and it
flirtatious.
Cuts away.
Yeah. And then
it is very like, you see a lot of skin.
But yes, by American standards, the sex would be a problem, and then it's also just scary.
It's kind of scary. Like there's a lot of imagery that is very dark, especially in the last kind of battle. But like I wanted to point out the kind of liaison for the Precious Gem workshop or Precious Jade workshop. She is particularly horrifying, and her two little like dum-dums that go and grab everything. By the way, very ingenious how they do how she has like an archive. It's this ribbon that kind of swirls around her and turns into boxes.
The sound design is great.
And she uses her pipe to essentially like tap the box, and it opens up. And it has whatever she needs at that time to like answer a question, or like she just has a complete catalog, I guess, in her brain on this ribbon that seems like equivalent of like a TARDIS. I thought that a lot of ingenious kind of technologies and stuff like that. I don't even want to call it that, but like systems, I guess. And but yeah, she's horrifying. And they find out that the wand that Blanca got was a soul-sucking wand. Basically, the idea is that if you stab someone with it or use it to attack somebody, you can essentially take their life force, and it imbues it in the wand. But
it gives you amnesia. So it's the one wand to rule them all, but it has a debuff on it. It's exactly like Lord of the Rings, which I thought was interesting. It's like she's like, you've deviously created the most powerful wand of all, because this wand can suck the power of all wands as like a meta wand, but it has this big downside. And I just think it's so interesting when folklores end up parallel. They leave with, but she does give them a clue, which is they say, well, who was the original owner of this thing? And she goes, this person, and she throws them a green snake scale. We know what it means, but they don't yet, because she has amnesia. So they're walking in the forest, and then Verta shows up, and Blanca immediately remembers her because it's her sister. So then I have to jump back a little earlier. The figurative general, if you will. The little general came through Snakecatcher Village, and he was like, search all the houses, almost kills a baby. threatens people and is like, tell me where Blanca is. And the town immediately rolls over. It's a town of cowards. And they go like, yeah, she's with Schwan. He's here. You please don't hurt us. And he takes Schwan's meat pie, a meat pie that belonged to him, and he turns it into a bat, and it flies away. And you don't think anything of it. And this is another one of those ingenious fantasy systems that I mentioned that I do love. It's like when sci-fi takes the time to have systems in the background where you think about them and you go, that actually makes sense. That little tube goes, I see what that machine is. That's cool. It's like that. So he releases this bat and you're like, I guess he was just showing off his magic. Well, now in this scene with Verta, a bat flies into frame and turns into a meat pie, and you realize he's been using the bat to locate them. But because the bat exudes his dark magic, Verta takes it as proof that Schwan is in league with the Taoists, because she's like, look, he has this magic meat pie. He's not supposed to know magic. And Blanca's like, no, I'm in love with him. He's a sweetie pie. And she's like, but why does he know evil magic then? And she basically tries to kill him with laser whips that have snake heads at the end of them, and it kicks ass.
It does kick ass. Yeah.
Although this is the one part I guess I didn't understand whether it was a plot hole or I just missed a detail. Blanca and Schwan flee into a pit that just happens to be there. I don't understand why where they are turns out to be so important, or if it was just by chance and we're supposed to not notice. But they run into a tomb nearby to try and escape, and that tomb turns out to be a secret passage to an elaborate abandoned Taoist temple where they developed evil magic full of demon skeletons.
Yeah, it's I think the idea is they built everything on top of this, and this is like an old, like, I think it's serendipitous, and that doesn't, it's not great for screenwriting, but the idea is that it's indicative of how kind of humans work, that they kind of just place on top, like just bury the sin, you know? And that's one of the things that like demons hate about humans. So I think it's like a parable that they kind of like built a city on top of a city kind of thing, but the city underneath kind of reveals.
Yeah, they call it an exorcism chamber, so you can assume it's a place humans tortured demons.
They tortured demons and like sucked their soul out. It's a Taoist temple also, so it's kind of like the feeling is this is probably where the main general, the dark general, like cut his teeth. Yeah, and he started doing his experiments. Like you get a real like Nazi doctor vibe from him.
Oh yeah, real Mangala vibes. So real quick, Uncharted style, Schwan proves his value since he's surrounded by superheroes by quickly solving a riddle and taking them out the door of life, which lets them escape from this giant metal firebird trap. Basically, the tomb was trapped and Schwan's able to get them out by solving a riddle. And
I just assumed that my westernness did, because that solve of that riddle was hilarious, because it's like, look over there and you see that there's this and then there's this and then oh wait, but that's the tree of life and then there's that, and it's like no one interrupts, no one asks questions, he just says it in one monologue, and he's like, that's the door of life, go.
It has something to do with Zen Buddhism, I think. Because he goes like,
so the
Dhammapada, the eightfold, if that's the tree and the turtle's in the sky, the door of life. I did it.
Yeah, and we're like, okay, because we don't know. I hope that that's not just bad writing.
No, I'm sure the riddle works. I assume that the riddle works.
Something that makes sense, like it's a famous painting or something. I don't know.
So
I couldn't find the research on that.
They escape to a safe part of the temple. The artifacts there refresh Blanca's memory fully, and she basically fills him in on everything we just told you. I'm a demon. I was supposed to assassinate the general. I'm with the snake people. I had amnesia, but now I'm fixed. And then they bone by the sweet demonic firelight, which I did not see coming because of my Western animation conditioning. I thought they'd kiss.
They don't just bone.
They full on bone.
They full on bone.
I mean, it fades to black, but
it fades to
it's
black.
the classic fade to black when they're like naked, being like, they're boning now, kids.
Oh yeah, they're like
avert
naked.
your
she
eyes.
like takes her top off.
Yeah. And that's the exact.
It's just tastefully shot. Like most of the movie is visually striking, and so they use like kind of the visual aesthetic to kind of like frame it in a
tasteful
minimalist way that
Desperado.
Yeah, so that's how I think they get away with the 7+, you know, age restriction on that.
Fun fact, this is the exact midpoint. So the midpoint's the consummation of their love, which I think, if you follow me, this movie is very structurally, like, quote unquote sound. The act 1, 2, and 3 is centered around the war between the humans and demons. And that's your A plot. This is a handy rubric for movies that are straightforward. Your A most important plot is on, it advances on the turning points of acts 1, 2, and 3. But your midpoint usually is a resonant beat about your most important B plot. So in this case, it's the love story.
Love. Yeah. So it's the fantasy arc and then the romance arc.
So they emerge from the tomb, which I also thought this was a little odd because that means they spent a fair amount of time letting Verta just stand there with her foot on Dudo's head, which is kind of negligent. Yeah. I couldn't bone knowing my dog was in trouble. I would think I'd be like, I gotta go see what's up with my dog real quick.
Especially now that you're like carrying conversations on with your dog and you realize that your dog maybe was made smart by her Blanca's magic.
Yeah.
But he could have always been that intelligent.
Yeah, I wonder about that because they definitely do a thing which is funny and not what a Pixar movie would do because it's almost too dark. The dog is immediately upset that it can talk.
Oh my God! That's when she gives power of speech to the dog. That moment,
the dog
I wanted
is
to just see
upset
the whole
about
movie.
it. Yeah.
It immediately goes, "Oh no, I'm clearly a demon now. Everyone's going to kill me."
And he says,
"That's its first thing." That's a quote.
I shouldn't be able to talk, which is such a self-judgment. Like he considers himself not worthy of speech.
Right. And he's also, as a dog, aware that there is politics between humans and demons.
That's true.
That if someone sees a demon, aka like someone who has like animal like characteristics, like a tail or something
can
like
talk,
that,
then they'll think it's a demon.
That, like humans will try to kill the demon.
Yeah.
And vice versa, and he knows he's now kind of a hybrid, and they all laugh.
Also,
like
no one gives it a
it.
second thought about Dudo's existential
like
crisis.
It's horrifying.
It's pretty scary stuff. So
he says everyone's going to kill me. That's like, imagine it's like immediately I cast a spell, immediately hits you. Literally the fourth like sentence out of his mouth is everyone's going to kill me.
I'm an abomination. Verta reveals that she has the scales and her heart's going to explode if they don't get to go home. Tries to convince Blanca, come be a snake, baby. We got to be snakes.
Hell yeah.
Schwann's basically Blanca's leaning that way because she says to Schwann, like, now that I have my full memories, I'll always love you, but I'm an immortal demon snake. It's not going to work out. Like she just basically dumps him. And
she basically just says, peace. I kind of got my memory all back and it was fun. But
she's very sad, but she's like, this would not work out. And he hugs her and is like, I'll find a way. Wait for me. She wants to wait for him. But Verta's like, we got to go. My heart's going to explode because the scorching demon scales. And just then, the soldiers arrive. Then we cut to Schwann at the Super Jade workshop. I forget what it's called. And he basically gets talked into, boom, another Disney parable. Very Ursula, right? Very Ursula, Little Mermaid.
Oh, yeah, it's the cost. It's you want something? Well, it's going to cost you something. And the person who's running the show is kind of like mentions it a little too late, is like, oh, by the way, we're going to need to like take something from your dog. Like there's not a contract up front that says you give me this, I give you that, and then we sign it. It's not like Fausted, it's exactly
you sign
like
it and
Ursula.
then they go, one more thing, your voice.
They Columbus. And she's terrifying, but he does it to himself. And she even mentions, you're going to become the lowest of the low because that won't be like
I mean,
devastating to you. Like you won't, because if you make you,
so she turns him into a demon so he can be with Blanca.
Like
so it would
a light demon.
It does make him immortal, but he's like the weakest, shittiest, non-magical demon possible.
He can run fast. That's basically it. And he's got a tail now.
And I think according to the logic of the movie, he is immortal. Like he could be with her now.
He is.
But not immortal can't be killed. He could be. And she's like, and fair warning, you'll be a weak ass demon and humans hunt demons. Like there's every chance you'll die soon anyway.
That's true with all demons, I believe.
Right. She says, well, you'll be hunted just because you're a demon.
Yeah, all demons want to kill demons, and humans want to kill demons. Like demon life ain't great.
Demon life ain't great. So she makes him a demon by giving him dog strength and speed, and by giving him Dudo's tail, and Dudo loses his tail. And again, no one cares about Dudo's problems.
Now he's a talking dog with no tail. He's just slowly becoming more hideous to other people who will want to kill him.
Imagine if your dog became conscious. Your best friend's dog, like adventure dog that you've had for years and you hike every day with them, became conscious and able to talk to you, and you immediately chose a chick over them. And then took their tail and were like, man, just leave me alone, man. We're going to risk our lives for this chick now. Anyway, I'm depressed, as I said.
No, I feel really bad for this dog because he's nothing but supportive. Like, he starts running. He's like, oh, I feel great. He has that scene where he's like trying out his superpowers, and the dog's having a heart attack because he doesn't have the powers anymore, apparently. Yeah. So he's like shitty at being a dog. So he's this shitty talking dog who isn't even a dog anymore. And everyone's like, fuck yourself. Like, it's not cool, man. It's very abusive to this dog who's just been delightful in the comic relief. Hasn't said anything bad. Has just been a dog and been shit on the entire movie.
Hashtag free
I don't know
Dudo.
why I reacted to it. Maybe it's just because they make him very cute. So you like want it to be cute, but it's like I typically in like when you watch like the Croods or something, I haven't actually seen the Croods, but like you know what I mean, like a DreamWorks or a Pixar, not even Pixar, but like DreamWorks especially.
When you watch
like
reruns of the Sea Monkeys show from ABC archives, no, go on.
Yeah, and it's like they have like they usually have, or in like I guess in Pixar, yeah, because they have like the Alan Tudyk does that bird in Moana, or the chicken. Like there's always a lovable, like, he's just cute.
The chicken was the one I was going to bring up though, because the chicken also gets injured very badly frequently.
Yeah, that's what they use. Yeah. But it's like, I don't know why it took me this movie to be like, they're going
pretty far with the funny animal cruelty. Yeah.
I think there's a moment in Moana where it's like, no, you want to save the chicken. Alan Tudyk's like flying out to sea, and she's like, no, or something. I can't remember.
Well, it's like at the end of the day,
there's like love there.
You're still on the team. We don't want you to get drifted away. We still want to save the chicken. Yeah.
This feels like just like I have a life in my pocket that at any time I need to like abuse something, I'll just do that instead of hurt myself.
I'll tell you, this movie,
like that's what it feels like.
This movie felt like a much cleaner though and simplified. It was so efficient and elegant. I thought Moana pushed it too far and Frozen 2 is even more egregious. Yeah. I hate how we're in the era of 5 or 6 comical sidekicks. Like, why? It's like you get a snowman, you get a talking snowman and a chicken and a dog, and the dog doesn't talk, but the chicken sometimes talks, and then they get switched. Their brain but goes into the horse's body, and now the horse thinks he's a chicken.
Like a Freaky Friday or
it's
something.
Too many. Yeah. Too much comic relief in Pixar's these days, and I liked that it's all on Dudo.
I think that there's something about that. I think we are like these aren't made, that moment in this type of movie included, and I consider all the movies internationally that we're considering here, like that moment is for kids, right? So it shouldn't be for us. We shouldn't really like be like, oh, okay.
Well, that's also one of the reasons.
Like here, let's judge that. But in this movie, it makes me go, well, does it have the same function? Because I believe it does. I think kids are just kids. And you like fall in love with the dog in 10 minutes. And then they just viciously beat the shit out of this dog.
You laugh as you said that. It's funny to beat the shit out of your friend.
It's funny, but I am a broken
Did you not watch the Bam Margera show, sir? This is what humor is.
But I understand where you're going.
It's waking your uncle up by just beating the shit out of him. It's funny.
Yeah, it's funny. It means you love him. You love your uncle. Yeah. Take his tail. Make him talk.
Take his tail, step on his head. Leave him above ground while you go have sex underground. These are the funny things that kids like. No, but I do think it serves the same function, and it's one of the reasons that these films stylistically converge, and it's worth pointing out, is that these massive CG projects are so expensive that they're marketed internationally no matter their origin. So the Whitesnake team is also looking for international aftermarket sales, and because of that, if it's so interesting that everyone arrives at the same formula. Like, the jokes in this are exactly the kinds of very funny, because they've been workshopped until they're correct, but very safe jokes that would be in a Pixar movie. They're exactly the same jokes. I thought that was so interesting. Like, low-hanging fruit humor that needs to travel globally all boils down to the same things. It's like, what if they slipped? Or like, what if the car didn't start, then it did start and it jerked away and he slipped and he fell in a puddle? It's like your basic shit.
What if someone falls down and then we wait a beat and then something falls on their head and they fall down? You know, like, it's these kind
what
of,
if the big mean-looking gorilla
rhythmic
cutely hugs the tiny squirrel? You know, like anything where it's just basic subversion of the trope. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's because I think it's people mimicking form. That's why I think we both love form, because because you have the form of structure of stories, but you also have the form of design, and I think that has something to be said about animation, where you can do everything. That it's like what is it? They have that, like, the DreamWorks smile. You know, like on every cover of DreamWorks animation features.
Oh, you mean
they have that smirk?
You mean the protagonist smile is usually exactly the same. Yeah,
smile,
yeah, that's a thing.
You know, it's in Zootopia as well with Jason Bateman Fox, and it's just like, because it's safe. It's for the same reason that I think you mentioned. Like, there's similarities of the international joke aspects, but there's also something to be said about, like, the reason that there's intelligence in the way they did it. I mean, I don't like the DreamWorks smirk or whatever, but that's just my opinion. What it does signify is that people have found out what works, and now we're all mimicking the form of it. We're mimicking the style of the animation. We're mimicking these things because they're doing popular. And, you know, call that like a lazy, you know, you can have your own opinions on that, but it doesn't take away from the fact that those forms are on top. And I think that what you just said kind of speaks to the fact that it is becoming more international. So even though this is thoroughly a Chinese tale, and it's done by Chinese creators and acted, for the most part, unless you watch the dub version, by Chinese craftsmen, drawn by Chinese people, you know, like, it's all this stuff that happens is completely auxiliary to, like, Western culture, but Western culture and Eastern culture, is especially in terms of, like, Hollywood.
We figured out how to make it close enough to sell to each other, which we deemed necessary. Yeah.
We've influenced them, they've influenced us, and now it's like, now the movies are going to be the same.
It's interesting because it's almost a shared meta language of film tropes that doesn't require actual linguical translation, but there's this, like, meta language of international films. Films designed to be international have a shared language of tropes and scenes that they trade around and mimic.
And when we think about what is genre, I think we'll find that the difference between what's happening in this case, like, or what I'm saying, and, like, why film noirs have, like, a femme fatale, or, like, the hero story is done in these ways, like, it's not that different. It's just a matter of geography when it comes down to it.
Right, but I think you could argue that there's a shadow genre, which is big budget films designed to travel. That is its own genre, which necessarily, through trial and error, has given rise to the tropes that work in that genre and the tropes that don't. And you can have different genres in that genre. You know what I mean? You could have a thriller or a kids cartoon, but
it's moments that we're mimicking. It's like, oh, remember that one moment in XY, you know, in Shrek, in some movie.
Right.
that like is very like what we're doing. Wasn't that great?
Like they did enough.
Do you have a thing for that?
It's just like you do enough DVD covers with someone doing the middle finger, and then you realize, oh, this won't sell in places where the middle finger is not the symbol for that. But you do enough covers where the protagonist is just on a white void giving a saucy smirk, and you're like, well, that sold. It didn't offend anyone. It didn't confuse anyone. Let's stick with that.
People watched it. Yeah. That fox looks like a real cut up.
Looks like a real bastard, real stinker.
Yeah. Real stinker.
So speaking of jokes that would not be in a Pixar movie. First, the sister snakes get attacked by the little general riding a 3-headed ostrich thing. And
so yeah, kind of awesome battle.
I think it's my favorite battle. He attacks them with it's hard to describe. You should see the movie for the spectacle. And
like paper.
You mentioned the pure control of animation. We should mention it's fully on display in the way that wuxia film also aspires to, but like every shot is methodically dutched to the perfect angle. Like the shape of the trees form a very intentional composition in the sky to outline the negative space behind the character. Like a wuxia film, or like Fantastic Mr. Fox, let's say, an animated movie by a director who has an eye for composition. Yeah. Every single shot looks like a goddamn postcard, or like you took a really great screen cap in Ghost of Tsushima or something. Even though I'm mixing Japanese and Chinese, I apologize.
No, it's very much the trope that they talk about in film school with every frame of painting. Not to be confused with the name of the
this movie aspires to have every frame be a painterly.
Yeah, exactly. Every shot, and it's also highly effective. Did you notice that? Like, I wasn't bothered too much by the dub version because of the motion and the wideness of the lens for most of the stuff. They would play conversations in wide, so you wouldn't notice that like there was a desync of the animation of the lips,
which I think is probably
they really thought about
an intentional part of making the film travel.
Yeah,
it's probably a business decision.
It was probably thought of, and they worked it into the design of it. And then also, so when you see close-ups, it's like another thing that is very that's very animated, like Asian culture, is showing the close-up only for like speechless moments. Like if you go to Ozu and stuff like that, you go to live action, even Kurosawa, there is an emphasis on the close-up for unspoken like there's no dialogue for those moments. That's how at least I was taught a signal difference between use of close-up. It depends on the filmmaker, but it's like you look to your greats, you look to the greats around you and you go like, who are the greats in like America? And you go like, okay, well, we got to do stuff like John Ford or like Steven Spielberg. So now you start seeing things like, or like Kubrick or something. And now you notice how, like, for example, Star Trek, the motion picture came out and the first 10 minutes is like a 2001 nod for no reason. In fact, if you go and watch the original Star Trek movie now, it is baffling to us in our place and time, looking back and going like, why did they do this? But it's because at the time, all the rage was Kubrick's 2001. In the same way, I think that's happening here, is I guess all I'm going to say.
So anyway, he shoots them with a bunch of golden machine gun birds that make a magical cage, like, and it's paper. Really cool. But just as he's about to kill them, Blanca's able to touch the jade wand that he's also touching and suck out his essence. So she gets amnesia again, but has his essence. And that fills her with so much magical power that she turns into her full demon form, which means she loses her human torso. She's a giant python.
She's all of her humanity's gone, basically.
Dudo and Schwan wake up in the forest, and here's the joke I was referencing they would never make in a Pixar movie. He immediately checks to make sure his dick is still there, and the dog also stares at his dick, and the dog is like, don't worry, master. I've got eyes on. Your dick is there. And he's like, great. Speaking of little generals, They set off to find Blanca, Verta, and the little general. They find a bunch of destruction leading to a huge city that's been sacked, fire on the horizon. They go there. They see Blanca rising from the water as a giant snake. It looks a lot like Godzilla. It's pretty rad. He, tries to talk her down. Basically, is like, can't you see what you're doing? Some of these people are innocent. Didn't I teach you that not all humans are evil? She has like the sad beast moment where she can't bring herself to keep killing, and she slithers away into the night. He runs into Verta. Verta tells him that they're going to that everyone's going to Snakecatcher Village to kill the general, because the general's going to Snakecatcher Village because that's where he thinks Blanca is. So everyone's going to Snakecatcher Village, and that's where the climax is going to be. Knowing that cut to Snake City, where all the snake people are hanging out, and they find out that the general's sending troops to their nest, which means there's a mole. Although in retrospect, I think this is a false flag. I think this isn't even true. Yeah, but the Snake Master lady tells them, they're already headed here, so we have no choice but to go to war. So let's all go to Snakecatcher Village and join the attack. Xuan tries to tell the people in Snakecatcher Village to evacuate, but they don't trust him anymore because he has a dog tail, which means he's a demon, so they shun him. Right. Blanca arrives. He's like, I told you so. He tries to talk her down, but just then the general attacks. We got a Class A battle on our hands, convoy. Verta.
How cool is the paper army that the general has?
Oh yeah, general fights with origami soldiers.
Yeah, and they look dope as fuck. They're like German impressionist angels. Is the only thing that I can think of what they look like.
Well, I think they're samurai. No,
I think they're samurai.
They have the flared helmets. I mean, is all.
They have a kind of. It's more basic than that. They're like very simple, like golems. But yeah, I'm sure that's kind of. It's very similar to that. Yeah.
Well, they're cool as hell.
But that's not specifically Chinese.
Much like robots or stuffed animals, you can rip them apart violently and make your battle really hardcore without scaring the kids too much.
It's very smart.
But the general, and this is again 7+, really. The general has a trap that's clearly made of hundreds of skulls of people that were executed. Like on string. In order to make the device requires just slaughtering villages.
Dangling little skulls.
And these traps, he basically waits for everyone to be concentrated fighting, and he springs his trap. It creates an energy trap that is basically going to slowly dissolve the souls of Verta, Blanca, and Xuan.
Soul and the body, yeah.
And body
into
and
like
soul.
A vortex.
So you will no longer be on the path to reincarnation that inevitably leads to enlightenment. You will dissolve and be nothing. So Western culture's version of death. You will actually die.
Yeah.
So then I guess Jafar has to be arrogant in the last moment or the movie doesn't work. Right. But my God, how dumb. He's so like, prideful. But if I open the trap, I can suck your souls into me, and then I'll be the most powerful ever. And they're like, are you sure you want to do that? That would give them, they're already in the trap. Moment. You got them. Yeah. And he's like, but I must have the power. So he loosens the trap in order to suck their souls out himself, which would give him enough power to become immortal. He starts with Verta and accidentally absorbs the scorching death scales. Well,
good plant payoff. Good efficiency.
But he's so powerful that another thing in Chinese films, this is a thing that doesn't often happen in American movies. Usually our superheroes' powers are defined and limited. I like Chinese storytelling has this trope where, well, he's just so powerful that rule we established earlier no longer applies to him. He's more powerful now.
Right.
Even though we were told the scorching death scales are the most powerful magic, nothing can outdo them. A big turn here is he just uses magic to take them out of himself.
It's final form shit. Yeah. And I think it's fine. I think they get a pass because everyone has that. So you kind of just assume like, well, everyone can die once. And then like, if you just assume that every cat has like 9 lives, you just got to kill them 10 times.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just them's the rules, because that's what we want to do here is we just got to kill these cats.
But that distracts him long enough for the Snake Master to throw the jade pin into his heart, But that doesn't kill him. He's able to remove it. They continue fighting.
But he's hurt now. He's seeping.
He's seeping energy. Everyone joins the fight. It's the Snake Master turns into her final form, a giant two-headed snake. It's kind of like too epic to describe.
Go watch it. Go watch that part.
But it ends with
pretty baller, though.
Verta stabbing the general in the back with the pin, which is finally enough. The Snake Master uses the pin as a conduit and absorbs his essence, and he dies. Then, unfortunately, false resolution, because we still got the snakes on their way to go to the village and slaughter all the humans.
Yeah.
And to make matters worse, Snake Master reveals that she has learned Taoist dark kung fu, just like the ancient one in Doctor Strange.
So she's like new Dark General now.
She accessed the evil dark magic they're not supposed to access. That is the whole reason they hate the humans. And she's just as evil. And the reason she wanted to absorb his power was just to have the power. So then she steals Verta's soul, I believe, and tosses the jade pin away. And then she sucks the souls out of every snake and turns them all to mundane snakes and becomes the super uber snake. This causes... She also sucks the energy out of Blanca, who becomes human form again. She sees the jade pin lying in the snow. She tries to reach for it. She can't reach it. It looks like she's going to die, but Xuan uses the general's trap to immobilize Master Snake.
I kind of like that a lot. Like the reversal of the trap, because like the shots are the same. So the trap going from, it was for the white snake and now it's for the Snake Master, because the foil is the same, because like the sin is the same kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, trying to suck everyone's essence out. Yeah, don't do that.
Exactly.
You can't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
So, but then the general comes to life just long enough with his last ounce of strength to trigger the trap in such a way that it collapses on all of them, including Xuan. So now it's like, you got Master Snake, but everyone's going to die. It's just the trap is fucked.
Yeah.
Xuan quickly looks up and sees constellations in the sky and uses them to again solve a riddle that I don't understand, but I trust that it makes sense. Right. And tries to carry Blanca out the door of life again, but he can't find the door of life. They slowly freeze. They can't go anywhere. And I gotta say, I can't tell if this is more or less impressive because I'm really depressed when I watch this, but I like balls this whole time.
Really? Yeah.
The trap absorbs Master Snake's soul, so she's dead. But then for a very long time, and this is handled more darkly than a Pixar American movie would handle it.
It's Rose and it's Titanic shit.
They freeze, and Xuan slowly dies as we see all of their most pleasant memories together. And he sings a song with the last of his breath, and she sings along crying as his soul is drained. And like the literal stakes that the movie set up is, this is the difference between reincarnating until you get it right and he's just gone. Like it's like rubbing the kid's face in death in a very Coco way. So it's like he's going away forever now. To be scattered into the void. The thought is beautiful, but it's, once again, for me, just how effective music and images are in evoking things. Like it's like if you didn't have the music doing its thing and you didn't have the slow, like it's very close to like in Avengers. I'm sure a lot of people had the effect with the snap, where everyone starts turning into dust. That may not work on any particular person, and it may be like super effective to another person. That's just kind of cool. Yeah, no, it got me because of the abstract nature it's appealing to. Whereas the snap is like, aren't you sad because you'll miss Spider-Man because you like Spider-Man so much? And I'm like, yeah, kind of. That gets me a little, but not a lot. But this is like, the stakes are explicitly, everyone else gets to reincarnate eternally. You alone are going to become nothing and just dissolve into the void. That's so deeply disturbing to me. I really don't like that thought. It sounds very frightening. This is interesting because I didn't care. I didn't care for either of them. Or you just mean they didn't. This is kind of what I wanted to talk you about. Emotionally. Like neither of them affected me. Yes, that's what I mean. And I also don't understand the final scene. Okay, well, okay, so let me wrap up. It is a happy ending, though. She does save him because she cleverly decides to absorb his soul into the jade pin instead of letting it dissolve. So now his soul's in the jade pin, and we flash forward to the original scene where the sisters are in the hot spring, and Verta is gifting her the pin. This is my interpretation. Maybe this will answer your question. My interpretation was, this is far in the future, and Verta's gifting her the pin back because she's finally meditated enough to process the trauma of losing Xuan and have back the happy memories of him that are inside the pin. So Blanca then sets out to find whoever Xuan is now, because since his soul was saved, it reincarnated. And they travel all over the world, and they find a guy who looks essentially exactly like him, and they start to flirt with him, and then credits roll. Or did you mean the post-credits scene?
They drop the pin. No, the post-credits scene, I'm sure, is just building for if they're making a second one, which I'm sure they are. But I got the reincarnation bit. What I didn't understand is that if she used the pin, how come she remembers everything?
Well, because even though it blasts you with amnesia, your memories come back over time, remember? Like when she saw stuff in the
but she doesn't
demon
have
tomb, her memories came back. So my assumption was
is just over
the experience
time?
Was so traumatic that her amnesia took 500 years to fade this time.
According to the movie so far, what triggers the memories is confrontation with aspects of oneself. So it was Blanca being reunited with Verta that caused her to remember her sister. But I guess memory, who knows how it works, and she lives for thousands of years.
Right.
So,
well, they obliquely reference that after the events of the battle at Snakecatcher Village, they've been hanging out meditating for hundreds of years. So time is a little different than them.
Yeah, that can all work out. There's another thing about the point of the movie, which is kind of nailed in by the ending, that I took issue with, or I just was like, I don't know if that's entirely consistent. Could you guess what it is? Probably. Maybe.
Well, the one thing I don't get, well, this isn't really the point of the movie, it's just movie math, but if his soul was in the pin, at what point did it dissipate and become reincarnated? I thought it was in the pin.
That's
okay.
Movie math.
What's your thing?
My thing was that, okay, so kind of trying to take, good job on the recap. That was very excellent, because it's actually kind of a dense
when we intertwined it with our commentary,
I
much like two snakes, sisters.
Like two snakes making a helix. The idea of the story is about borrowing power, right? And ultimately, one of the things it says is about how it's not worth it because it corrupts you and it's fleeting. It will leave you at some point. But I'm not sure that the film is actually sending that message by its acts and how people get away with things and how people do things and how people respond to the things that people do. So, I mean, specifically with the villains, yeah, they're corruptible and they immediately use power like the soul sap magics. But something I noticed in like the final battle is between the two borrowed powers are both kind of human in origin. I guess it all came from snakes originally, so it's the same magical energy in the end. But Blanca is powered up by sapping Little General's essence, and Snake Master's sapping up the Dark General's essence, and they go at it, and it feels like, well, this is the way it should be. Like, I'm wondering what the movie thinks about that, because the consolidation of power doesn't have a cost in this movie. For example, when we look at Xuan turns himself into a demon to be with Blanca, there's an emphasis on the transactional nature of power transfer. You used a lot of, I thought you using Ursula as an kind of a Western analogy or an analog is very apt, because Little Mermaid, the entire movie then takes a total different change. Granted, it's about her and it's not as sweeping and as epic as this. This is more ensemble in its nature. But like, it is about the fact that that transaction fucks her up seriously. So the thing that you wanted, you got punished severely. In this, we never really feel the cost. It's A, outsourced to an animal, and B,
it was the right
also kind of
strategic move. It was really smart for him to do that. It all worked out.
Smart for him to do. But what's his cost? Because, I mean, for example, let's look at Xuan from after he turns into like the fox spirit or whatever, or the dog spirit. When he like, as opposed to when he was human, he like dies of cold. When he's a human and he like kind of comforts Blanca, like they're very freezing, but it's kind of like they're echolet scenes, you know, like they're both hugging each other, freezing cold because of like the magics have drained like all of the life out of the room. He doesn't die when he's a human, but he dies, I guess, because when he's a demon. So maybe he's weaker. That's the only thing I can think of, because it doesn't seem to have anything to do with him turning into a demon specifically. He's eaten body and soul by the soul tapper trap. And I have questions about his constitution for the cold. If he's a demon, can he survive like her? When he's a human, he did fine. That's one thing. Then in an absolute fuck you to this concept entirely, she uses the wand to seal him into it, right? But now she's just a snake. There's only one, and we just kind of yada yada over her unbecoming.
Oh, you mean we flash forward and she's a pretty lady again? Well, also, right, I always think it's kind of a weak choice to make. Like, you can tell they're good because they're pretty. The general and the literal general are ugly. You can tell they're jerks because they're ugly.
Yeah, that's like the neoclassical thing. I guess what I'm getting at is that moment, there's only one time the cost of using the wand actually has repercussions.
Which is the first time she attacks the general, which propels the plot.
Yeah. And I guess that someone can say, well, it's because this time it was used for love. But it's like, it's still being like soul tapping magic in general, not just the wand, is used exclusively for more power accumulation and destruction. It's about, the cost is about the lives of your enemies. It's not about anything with you. So what's all this emphasis on transaction just with this wand, and then also
the Jade Workshop?
Like the good guys have so the bad guys have to fuck over hordes of innocent people. The good guys get to kind of isolate who they get to fuck, and it's like kind of fine, you know? And that's kind of inconsistent to me. If the borrowing in the power and how borrowing power corrupts you and is fleeting, I don't think that this film is sending that message.
I feel like it took more of an agnostic view of power. Like, power is just a force that moves around and you can accumulate it or lose it. And if you are good, you use the amount of power you have for good, and that's good. And if you're bad, you tend to use it for bad, and that's bad. Like, it's down to the individual's outlook.
I think that's right. I think that's true about power, and I think that this film says that to that point. But it also goes on to say that there's a cost for it, and when you borrow these powers, that cost for good guys doesn't really hurt anyone. It just, the bad guys look like bad guys because the good guys and the bad guys are doing the same thing.
Right.
But the bad guys are bad because it hurts other people.
And I find that that's a classic problem in folk tales, is a lot of them, you could levy that criticism at them. Like, at the end, the good guys and the bad guys are doing the same thing. And you didn't draw attention to that in a poignant way. You just were like, but they're bad because they're the other. Well, that's a very primitive storytelling element, but folk tales are a primitive form of storytelling, if you know what I mean. They're primal. Right. They come from the roots of storytelling. So it makes sense that they still are enshrouded in simple aphorisms like, well, that guy's just the bad guy. Don't worry about why. We're not trying to comment on power structures. He's an ugly snake man. He's bad. You know what I mean?
But it makes.
But I agree that you're like, but life is more complex, and it's like, yeah, but we're telling Pinocchio. We're telling Little Mermaid here.
But then, okay, But now the problem becomes that when you do like like this many times it's been told in many cultures, like the person who sacrifices their humanness to be with like a demon or to be with with the Shrek
or
monster.
to break a fish man out of the facility, whatever. Yeah.
Right. Anytime that happens, it's like, well, if nothing's gonna go wrong.
But you still take the risk. The protagonists of those tales don't know it's going to work out. They just got rewarded in the end.
Yeah, but the bad guys don't know either. They're just like, I gotta take power.
And that's what I'm saying.
They just don't care.
That's the joy.
But the good guys also don't care.
The joy of the climax of a story is it's a flipping coin in midair, right? Both teams don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm saying you can't retroactively say, well, it all worked out for the good guys, so the good guys never had any risk. They had risk while the ball was in play. They just won in the end. You can't like apply that retroactively. You know what I mean?
Well, I do think that
they fear death,
inform their decision makings. They get more. Everyone gets wildly more like, let's just use magic in a heartbeat. Because they haven't been punished. So maybe that's not what the film is saying. Maybe the film is saying, if you have power, take it, and use that power for like what you think is good.
I think so. I think it's mainly just love conquers all, and if you love someone, go for it and do anything to reach them, which is a wildly irresponsible point. I don't actually believe that it's true, but I think it's a classic time-honored point of movies like this, and I think it's the one they're dancing around.
No, I think, yeah. So that's just something, I mean, you're right. You're right. A lot of folktales especially have this kind of problem. This one I just noticed because it was like it's almost like they ordered the scenes to be like, well, could have learned a lesson there.
But
nope.
So many stories that are this primal like start with lines like, once there was an evil old woman, and you don't interrogate, well, who hurt her? What made her evil? Is she really evil, or does society just think she's evil? No. This isn't that kind of story. She's evil, okay? This is a bedtime story.
And likewise, in reactions, characters in folktales,
they're very functional.
How many times is it? They're very functional, and they react in a way that is very like, oh, I could have known better, but I'm just like, for example, in like a Star Wars, it's like, I got a bad feeling about this. It's someone making a joke about something that's happening, but it's also kind of what's at the heart of the joke: the lack of preparedness of all of this. Like we like that with our rebels, that they're not really prepared. Right. They're just like flying by the seat. Yeah.
Well, there's one line.
It's just like,
there was one line in the movie that I thought was the most resonant, but I think it's because I'm depressed. I don't even think they meant it to be. But the line I wrote in all caps at the top of the doc was, Schwan, I don't want to do lots of things, but that's what life is.
Yeah. No,
and I'm like, that's a wise line. I was
true. Like, that's wise. Yeah.
That reminds me of...
I remember when I watched it, I was like, did you just think of that?
The old guy sitting at the bar telling the truth. That's what life is.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. Too bad, that's what life is. A bunch of shit you don't want to do.
That's what life is, a bunch of shit you don't want to do.
But wait, I'm aware of some people who just do what they want all the time. Yeah, but you're not one of them, and you never will be. Just forget them. Great movie. Thanks, Mind Freak.
They're better than us. They're better than you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Carson Daly's just inherently better and more talented than us. That's why he gets the luxuries he gets. God, Carson, I just want Carson's life so bad. I want his life.
He's like a white snake, man.
I liked the when she's the ice and he's the fire, and it makes condensation that makes the Buddha statues look like they're crying. That also made me cry.
That's dope.
But that one I completely chalk up to. I'm like, I'm susceptible. I would not normally cry at that. It's just an image.
Sometimes that's all I need, man. Sometimes it's like most of the time, when I like cry during like scenes or something like that, I'm like, oh fuck, it's just they held on that image for just the right number of seconds. And like, I know it's because like you put you on your filmmaking hat and you're like, it's an image, but it doesn't change that movie magic always works on you. It just limits the number of times that you're not thinking about movie magic, but movie magic can still creep in and get you.
4 right chords can make me cry. Abe, when I'm with you, I feel like I could die. And that would be all right. All right.
Thanks,
That's
man.
frame rate.
Thanks.
Is Third Eye Blind? Did that scan for you? Oh,
yeah,
okay, good.
Yeah.
All
no,
right, okay.
No, I
Otherwise, that would be
very
cryptic. All right.
Cryptic and cruel, kind of.
Yeah.
You know, feel like when I'm with you, I feel like I could die as well, dude.
Also, when I'm with you, little red panties face down on the mattress.
Yeah. You know that movie's about heroin, or that song's about heroin, right?
I do.
Yeah. I think everyone does. Do. Let's beat this cute little dog. That's what this movie's about.
I wish you'd step back
Such
from that
a
ledge.
cute little dog. I don't even know many Third Eye Blind songs.
When I'm
Never Let You Go.
When I'm just spooling off
That's
90s
one.
references, you know that I've instinctively regressed to my comfort zone. You know what I'm talking about, Willie Beamish?
Yeah, and I'm out of my element.
You know what I mean? I want my MTV, sir.
God, I'm so not a 90s
Really?
kid. I mean, I am, but I just not TV.
It was the best, man. It wasn't objectively, but for me, the age I am, it was the decade that coincided with whatever for some reason. It's the nostalgic decade to me. Like, I know some people feel that way about the 80s. Definitely for me, it's like 95 to 2005 is the nostalgic decade.
Right. The formative years, you know? It's the time in which you were changing and you're like, you know what? Life gets me. In a way, there's like people in the world that like understand my like complexity, and it's do.
Flipped everything. It was
That's
a real
how
vertical horizon.
All right, now
It's
now we
time
gotta
to go.
stop the podcast. You pulled out the vertical horizon.
Yeah.
It's time to go. Is there anything else you want to say about this movie?
I smell sex and candy hair, but no, not other than that.
You gotta go. You gotta go. He's gonna be talking about Jewel in a second. No. Thanks again, Mind Freak 555.
Yeah,
It was a fun conversation.
I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the conversation. I'm just saying,
Absolutely.
if you pick a big movie, it'll make it easier to get guests. There's a lot of benefits.
Yeah.
Although I always wanted to see Fantastic Planet, so I'm truly grateful to finally have watched that.
Yeah.
And I never would have watched this otherwise.
This is the first time I'd seen this one. Yeah.
I guess I'm
Thanks for
wrong.
that.
You're smarter than
And,
us. Just tell us what to watch, Daddy. I'm sorry. I gotta go.
Fuck me up, Daddy. Fuck me up, Daddy. That's how we end podcasts here from now on. Just tell us what to do, Daddy. And that's a frame rate.
Good one.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you!